The eviction notice trembled in Tasha's hands as she stared at the red letters that seemed to mock her from the kitchen table. 24 hours. That's all she had left before they would throw her and her 8-year-old daughter Lily out onto the streets. The apartment that had been their safe haven for 3 years was about to become another memory of failure. Mama, are we really going to be homeless? Lily's small voice cut through the silence like a blade through Tasha's heart. Tasha quickly folded the notice and forced a smile. No, baby. Mama's going to fix this. I promise. But how could she fix something that seemed impossible? She'd been fired from her hotel cleaning job 2 weeks ago after her supervisor caught her taking extra food from the breakfast buffet to pack lunch for Lily. The explanation that she couldn't afford groceries had fallen on deaf ears. Now, with no income and no savings, she was drowning in bills and responsibilities. Her phone buzzed with a text from her sister. Found a job posting. Pays 3 times what you were making. It's housekeeping for some rich guy. Nobody wants it though. Says he's impossible to work for. Tasha's fingers shook as she typed back, "Send me the details." Within minutes, she had the address and a phone number. The pay was indeed 3 times her old salary, but the warnings in the job description were alarming. Employer requires absolute discretion. Previous staff have not lasted more than 2 weeks. Must be able to work in challenging conditions with minimal supervision. The next morning, Tasha stood outside the massive iron gates of Sterling Manor, her resume clutched in her sweaty palm. The mansion loomed before her like something from a dark fairy tale, all sharp angles and black stone. The gardens were overgrown, as if nature itself was trying to reclaim the property. A security guard buzzed her through the gates after checking her ID 3 times. As she walked up the long driveway, she noticed how quiet everything was. No birds sang in the trees. No gardeners tended to the grounds. The place felt abandoned despite the obvious wealth it represented. The woman who answered the door was around 60, with silver hair pulled back in a tight bun and eyes that held a mixture of pity and warning. "You must be Tasha," she said, stepping aside to let her in. "I'm Mrs. Patterson, the head housekeeper. I have to ask, are you sure you want this job?" "Really sure." Tasha nodded, though her stomach churned with anxiety. "I need the work, ma'am." Mrs. Patterson studied her for a long moment. "Mr. Sterling isn't like other employers. He's difficult. The last 3 girls quit without notice. One of them left crying. Another said she'd rather work in a factory than deal with his temper." "What exactly does he do that's so terrible?" Tasha asked, genuinely curious. "He's demanding. Expects perfection. He doesn't speak to staff unless it's to point out something wrong. And he has rules, lots of rules. No noise after 9 p.m. No entering certain rooms. No personal calls during work hours. No questions about his personal life." Tasha thought about the eviction notice, about Lily's worried face, about the stack of unpaid bills on her kitchen counter. "Mrs. Patterson, I really need this job. I'm willing to work hard and follow his rules." The older woman sighed. "Well, you seem different from the others. More determined. Come on, I'll show you around and introduce you to Mr. Sterling." As they walked through the mansion, Tasha couldn't help but be amazed by the grandeur around her. Crystal chandeliers hung from ceilings that seemed to stretch up forever. Marble floors gleamed under her feet. Paintings that looked like they belonged in museums lined the walls. But there was something sad about it all. The beauty felt cold, untouched. It was like walking through a museum after closing time, beautiful but lonely. "Mr. Sterling had an accident 3 years ago," Mrs. Patterson explained as they climbed a grand staircase. "He used to be very social, always having parties and business meetings. Now he rarely leaves his study. The accident changed him." "What kind of accident?" Tasha asked, then immediately regretted it when Mrs. Patterson gave her a sharp look. "Rule number 1, no personal questions. You'll learn that quickly enough." They stopped outside a heavy wooden door. Mrs. Patterson knocked twice. "Come in," came a voice from inside. It was deep, commanding, and held not a trace of warmth. The study was dimly lit, with heavy curtains blocking most of the sunlight. Behind a massive desk sat a man who couldn't have been older than 35, though his eyes looked much older. His dark hair was perfectly styled, his suit expensive and crisp. He was handsome in a sharp, dangerous way, like a beautiful knife. What struck Tasha most was his posture. He sat perfectly straight, but something about the way he held himself suggested he was anchored to that chair in a way that went beyond choice. "Mr. Sterling," Mrs. Patterson began, "this is Tasha Johnson. She's here about the housekeeping position." Nicholas Sterling's cold blue eyes fixed on Tasha with an intensity that made her want to step backward. He looked her up and down as if she were a piece of furniture he was considering buying. "Another one," he said, his voice dripping with disdain. "Tell me, Miss Johnson, what makes you think you can handle this job when 3 women before you couldn't?" Tasha felt her cheeks burn, but she lifted her chin. "I need this job, Mr. Sterling. I have a daughter to support and I'm not afraid of hard work." "Need," he repeated as if tasting the word. "Desperation makes people do foolish things. It also makes them unreliable. When something better comes along, desperate people run." "I'm not running anywhere," Tasha said firmly. "I give my word that I'll work hard and follow your rules." Nicholas leaned back in his chair, studying her with those cold eyes. "My rules are simple but non-negotiable. You will clean this house to perfection. You will be invisible unless I need something. You will not ask questions about my personal life or my business. You will not gossip with the other staff about me. And you will not, under any circumstances, treat me with pity." The last rule was delivered with such venom that Tasha actually flinched. "Do you understand?" he asked. "Yes, sir." "Good. Mrs. Patterson will show you what needs to be done. You start tomorrow at 7 a.m. sharp. If you're even 1 minute late, don't bother coming back." As they left the study, Tasha felt as if she'd just survived an interrogation. Mrs. Patterson closed the door behind them and shook her head. "That actually went better than I expected," she said. "He didn't yell or throw anything." "He throws things?" Tasha asked, alarmed. "Not at people," Mrs. Patterson clarified quickly. "But he's been known to sweep everything off his desk when he's frustrated. He's not violent, just angry. All the time." That night, as Tasha tucked Lily into bed, her daughter asked, "How was the new job, Mama?" Tasha smoothed Lily's hair and tried to find the right words. "It's going to be challenging, baby. But it means we can stay in our home and you can keep going to your school. Is your new boss nice?" Tasha thought about Nicholas Sterling's cold eyes and sharp voice. "He's complicated. But Mama can handle complicated." As she lay in bed that night, Tasha wondered what she'd gotten herself into. The man in that study had seemed more like a caged animal than a human being. There was pain in his eyes, buried deep beneath layers of anger and bitterness. But she'd given her word and she needed this job. Whatever Nicholas Sterling's problems were, she would find a way to work around them. She had to. The next morning, as she stood once again at the gates of Sterling Manor, Tasha took a deep breath and prepared to enter a world that would change her life in ways she couldn't imagine. The grandfather clock in the foyer chimed 7 times as Tasha pushed through the heavy front door of Sterling Manor. She'd arrived at exactly 7 a.m., determined not to give Nicholas Sterling any reason to fire her on her first day. Mrs. Patterson was waiting for her with a cart full of cleaning supplies and a look of grim determination. "You're punctual." "That's good," she said, handing Tasha a detailed schedule. "Mr. Sterling's routine is very specific. He takes his breakfast at 8 in the morning room. You'll clean the main floor while he's eating. He works in his study from 9 to 12, then has lunch brought to him there. That's when you clean the second floor. He never goes to the 3rd floor anymore, so you can clean that anytime." Tasha studied the schedule, noting how it was designed to keep her and Nicholas from crossing paths. "Does he ever leave the house?" "Rarely. He has business meetings by video call and handles most everything from his study. He used to travel constantly for work, but now—" Mrs. Patterson trailed off, catching herself before she revealed too much. "The accident," Tasha said quietly. Mrs. Patterson nodded. "Everything changed after that. He was a different man before. Still demanding but not cruel. Now it's like he's at war with the world." As they began the morning routine, Tasha marveled at the sheer size of the mansion. Each room was larger than her entire apartment, filled with expensive furniture and artwork that probably cost more than she'd make in a lifetime. But despite the luxury, there was something deeply sad about the place. Family photos had been turned face down on tables and mantels. The grand piano in the music room was covered with a sheet and had clearly not been played in years. The formal dining room table was set for 1 person, though it could easily seat 20. "He used to entertain a lot," Mrs. Patterson explained, noticing Tasha's gaze. "Business dinners, charity galas, holiday parties. This house was always full of people. Now it's just him, the cook, the gardener, and us." At exactly 8 a.m., Tasha heard the sound of wheels on marble. She looked up from polishing a side table to see Nicholas emerging from an elevator she hadn't noticed before. He was in a wheelchair, but he moved with such precision and purpose that it seemed more like a throne than a mobility device. He was dressed in another expensive suit, his hair perfectly styled, his jaw clean-shaven. If she'd passed him on the street, she would have thought he was heading to an important business meeting. But here in his own home, the formal attire seemed like armor. He didn't acknowledge her presence as he wheeled past, heading toward the morning room. Tasha tried to make herself invisible, just as he'd demanded, but she couldn't help stealing glances at him. There was something magnetic about Nicholas Sterling, despite his cold demeanor. He moved with the confidence of a man who was used to being in control, but there was tension in his shoulders that suggested that control came at a cost. An hour later, she was dusting the library when she heard a loud crash from the study. Mrs. Patterson appeared at her elbow, barely glancing toward the sound. "That's normal," she said matter-of-factly. "He's probably on a conference call with his business partners. They're trying to push him to retire, and he's not taking it well." "Retire? But he's so young. They think the wheelchair makes him weak. That he can't run a multi-billion-dollar company from his house." Mrs. Patterson's voice carried a note of disgust. "They're wrong, of course. He's sharper now than he ever was. But people see the chair and think he's broken." Tasha continued her work, but her mind kept drifting to the man in the study. She'd seen the way his jaw tightened when Mrs. Patterson mentioned the accident. She'd noticed how his hands gripped the wheels of his chair as if he were always ready to flee. Around noon, she was cleaning the second-floor hallway when she heard the elevator again. Nicholas appeared, heading toward what Mrs. Patterson had told her was his bedroom suite. As he passed, a piece of paper fell from his lap. Tasha hesitated. He'd been clear about not wanting interaction, but she couldn't just leave his paper on the floor. She picked it up and followed him. "Mr. Sterling?" she called softly. "You dropped this." He spun his chair around so quickly that she took a step back. His eyes were blazing with anger. "I told you to be invisible," he snapped. "That doesn't mean following me around like a lost puppy." "I'm sorry, sir. I just thought you might need this." She held out the paper, keeping her distance. He snatched it from her hand and she caught a glimpse of what it was, a medical report with words like, "permanent paralysis," and "no hope of recovery" highlighted in yellow. For just a moment, his angry mask slipped, and she saw something else in his eyes. Raw, desperate pain that made her heart clench. "Get back to work," he said, but his voice had lost some of its edge. As she returned to her cleaning, Tasha found herself thinking about her own struggles. She knew what it felt like to have your world turned upside down, to face a future that looked nothing like what you'd planned. The difference was that she'd had Lily to fight for. Nicholas Sterling seemed to be fighting against everything, including himself. The afternoon passed quietly until she was cleaning the formal living room and heard music coming from somewhere in the house. It was classical, beautiful, and melancholy. She followed the sound to a room she hadn't seen before. A small sitting room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the garden. Nicholas was there, his wheelchair positioned in front of the windows. He wasn't doing anything, just sitting in the sunlight with his eyes closed, listening to the music. For the first time since she'd met him, he looked peaceful. She started to back away, not wanting to disturb him, but he spoke without opening his eyes. "Mozart's Piano Concerto No. 23, he said. "I used to play it." The admission seemed to surprise him as much as it did her. He opened his eyes and turned to look at her, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. "I'm sorry," Tasha said. "I didn't mean to intrude." "You didn't? I was just—" He trailed off as if he couldn't find the words. "It's beautiful," she said. "The music, I mean." "Yes." He turned back to the window. "I haven't listened to it in 3 years. Today seemed like the right day to start again." There was something in his voice that made her want to stay, to sit with him in the sunlight and listen to the music. But she knew that would be crossing a line he'd drawn very clearly. "I should get back to work," she said. "Yes," he agreed, but he didn't sound angry anymore. Just tired. As she cleaned the rest of the house, Tasha found herself thinking about that moment in the sitting room. There had been something different about Nicholas then, something human beneath the cold exterior. That evening, as she prepared to leave, Mrs. Patterson pulled her aside. "How did it go today?" she asked. "Better than I expected," Tasha said honestly. "He's not as scary as I thought he'd be." Mrs. Patterson raised an eyebrow. "Give it time. He has good days and bad days. Today must have been a good day." As Tasha walked to her car, she looked back at the mansion. Light glowed from the windows of Nicholas's study, and she could see his silhouette against the curtains. He was still working, still fighting whatever battles consumed his days. She thought about the medical report he'd dropped, about the pain in his eyes when she'd seen it. She thought about the way he'd looked listening to Mozart, like a man remembering who he used to be. Maybe Mrs. Patterson was right. Maybe Nicholas Sterling was impossible to work for. Maybe he was cruel and demanding and unreasonable. But Tasha had seen something else in him today. Something that made her think that beneath all that anger and bitterness was a man who was just as lost as she had been before she found this job. As she drove home to Lily, Tasha made a decision. She would stay. She would do her job, follow his rules, and keep her distance. But she would also pay attention. Because sometimes, the people who seemed the strongest were the ones who needed help the most. 3 weeks into her employment at Sterling Manor, Tasha had settled into a rhythm that allowed her to avoid Nicholas Sterling while still maintaining his impossibly high standards. She knew his schedule by heart now, when he took his calls, when he ate his meals, when he disappeared into his private quarters for hours at a time. But routine had also made her observant. She noticed things that Mrs. Patterson and the other staff seemed to have accepted as normal. The way Nicholas's medication bottles were always moved around on his desk, as if he spent time staring at them. The way he'd sit in his wheelchair at the bottom of the grand staircase sometimes, just looking up at the second floor like he was seeing ghosts. Most telling of all were the newspapers. Every morning he received 5 different publications, but he only read the business sections. The lifestyle pages, the society columns, the sports sections, all went straight into the trash unread. It was as if he'd decided that anything that might remind him of the life he'd lost was too dangerous to acknowledge. On this particular Tuesday morning, Tasha was cleaning the main floor when she heard shouting from the study. It wasn't the usual controlled anger she'd grown accustomed to, but something rawer, more desperate. "I don't care what the board thinks." Nicholas's voice carried through the heavy door. "I built this company from nothing, and I'm not going to let them push me out because of a wheelchair." There was a pause, then his voice again, quieter but no less intense. "No, Richard. No. I will not consider stepping down. I will not hand over control to you or anyone else. Sterling Industries is mine, and it will remain mine until I decide otherwise." Another pause. Then the sound of something hitting the wall. Tasha continued her work, but her heart was racing. She'd heard enough of his phone calls over the past weeks to piece together the situation. Nicholas's business partners were pressuring him to retire, using his disability as grounds to question his competence. They were slowly trying to take control of the company he'd built. Later that morning, she was dusting the library when Nicholas appeared in the doorway. He looked exhausted, his usual perfect composure slightly cracked. "Is there coffee?" he asked, and she was surprised by how normal the question sounded. "I believe Mrs. Patterson keeps a pot in the kitchen," Tasha replied. "Would you like me to bring you some?" He studied her for a moment, as if trying to decide whether accepting help would be a sign of weakness. "Thank you," he said finally. "Black, no sugar." When she returned with the coffee, he was sitting by the library's large window, staring out at the overgrown garden. She set the cup on the table beside him and started to leave. "They want me to retire?" he said suddenly. Tasha stopped, unsure if she should respond. He'd made it clear that personal conversation was off limits. "My business partners," he continued, still looking out the window. "They think I'm no longer capable of running the company. They're calling for a vote of no confidence." "Are you?" she asked, then immediately regretted it. The question had slipped out before she could stop herself. He turned to look at her, and she braced herself for anger. Instead, he seemed genuinely curious about her response. "Am I what?" "Incapable of running your company." Nicholas was quiet for a long moment. "I can't travel like I used to. I can't attend every meeting in person. I can't." He gestured vaguely at his legs. "I can't do a lot of things I used to do. But can you still think? Can you still make decisions? Can you still lead?" "Yes." "Then they're wrong," Tasha said simply. Something shifted in his expression. "You say that like it's obvious." "It is obvious. I've been working here for 3 weeks and I've seen how you handle your business calls. You're sharper than anyone I've ever met. You see solutions that other people miss. The wheelchair doesn't change that." Nicholas stared at her as if she'd said something profound instead of stating the obvious. "Most people see the chair first," he said quietly. "It's all they see. Then most people are stupid." The words came out with such conviction that Nicholas actually smiled. The first real smile she'd seen from him. It transformed his entire face, making him look years younger and infinitely more human. "Mrs. Patterson was right about you," he said. "What did she say?" "That you were different from the others. More substantial." Tasha felt her cheeks warm. "I just say what I think. That's rarer than you might imagine." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, both looking out at the garden. Then Nicholas spoke again. "I used to landscape that garden myself. Before the accident. I'd spend hours out there planning where each plant would go, getting my hands dirty. It was the only time I ever felt completely peaceful. What happened? Tasha asked gently. Nicholas's expression darkened. Car accident. Drunk driver ran a red light and hit me head on. I was on my way to. He stopped, shaking his head. It doesn't matter where I was going. What matters is that I'll never walk there again. I'm sorry, Tasha said, and she meant it. I don't want your pity, he said, but without his usual venom. Good, because I'm not giving you any. I'm sorry it happened, but I'm not sorry for who you are now. He looked at her sharply. Who I am now. Strong. Determined. Resilient. You could have given up after the accident, but you didn't. You found a way to keep building your empire from a wheelchair. That's not something to pity, that's something to admire. Nicholas was quiet for so long that Tasha began to worry she'd overstepped. Then he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. I haven't felt admirable in a very long time. Then you haven't been looking in the right mirrors, Tasha said. That afternoon, as she cleaned the second floor, Tasha found herself thinking about their conversation. She'd seen a different side of Nicholas today, vulnerable, human, real. The angry mask he wore most of the time was just that, a mask. Underneath was a man who was fighting battles she was only beginning to understand. When she came to work the next morning, she found a surprise waiting for her. The garden had been touched by professional landscapers overnight. The overgrown weeds were gone, the pathways were clear, and someone had planted new flowers in organized beds. Mrs. Patterson noticed her looking out the window. He hired a crew yesterday afternoon, she said. First time he's done anything with the garden since the accident. He was out there supervising them from his wheelchair until almost midnight. He was? Tasha asked, trying to keep her voice neutral. Oh yes. Haven't seen him that engaged in anything outside of work in years. He was pointing out exactly where each plant should go, just like he used to do. As if summoned by their conversation, Nicholas appeared in the morning room for breakfast. He looked more rested than she'd seen him, and when he glanced toward the garden, there was satisfaction in his expression. The garden looks beautiful, Tasha said as she cleaned nearby. It's a start, he replied. Rome wasn't built in a day and gardens aren't restored in one night. But it's a good beginning. Yes, he agreed, looking at her with something that might have been gratitude. It is. As the day progressed, Tasha noticed other small changes. Nicholas left his study door open while he worked. He said good morning to Mrs. Patterson. He even complimented the cook on lunch. Small things, but they felt significant. Like cracks forming in a wall that had been too solid for too long. That evening, as she prepared to leave, Nicholas appeared in the foyer. Tasha, he said, and she was surprised by how her name sounded in his voice. Thank you. For what you said yesterday. About the mirrors. You're welcome, she said simply. I want you to know that I'm going to fight them. My business partners. I'm not going to let them push me out. Good, she said. You shouldn't. He smiled that transformative smile again. I'll see you tomorrow. As she drove home, Tasha felt something she hadn't experienced in a long time, hope. Not just for her own situation but for Nicholas. He was starting to fight back, starting to remember who he was beneath all the anger and pain. She thought about the garden, about the way he'd supervised its restoration late into the night. He was rebuilding more than just flower beds. He was rebuilding himself. And somehow, impossibly, she was becoming part of that process. The change in Nicholas Sterling didn't happen overnight, but it was unmistakable. Over the following weeks, the angry silences that had once filled Sterling Manor were replaced by something Tasha had never expected, conversation. It started small. A comment about the weather. A question about how her day was going. A simple thank you when she brought him coffee. But gradually these moments grew longer, more personal, more real. You have a daughter, Nicholas said one morning as Tasha cleaned his study. It wasn't a question. Somehow he'd found out about Lily. Yes, Tasha replied, continuing to dust his bookshelf. Her name is Lily. She's 8. That must be difficult, raising her alone. Tasha glanced at him, surprised by the gentleness in his voice. Some days are harder than others. But she's worth it. She's worth everything. What's she like? The question caught her off guard. In all her previous jobs, employers had never asked about her personal life. But Nicholas seemed genuinely curious. She's brilliant, Tasha said, unable to keep the pride from her voice. She loves to read and she's always asking questions about everything. Sometimes I think she's smarter than I am. I doubt that, Nicholas said quietly. She wants to be a doctor when she grows up. She says she wants to help people feel better. Tasha paused, then added, she's the reason I took this job. I needed to provide for her, Give her opportunities one never had. What happened to her father? It was a personal question, one that crossed the boundaries they'd established. But something in Nicholas's tone made her want to answer. He left when she was 2. Said being a father was too much responsibility. I haven't seen him since. I'm sorry. Don't be. We're better off without him. Lily and I were a team. We take care of each other. Nicholas nodded, and she could see him processing this information. It takes courage to do what you're doing. Raising a child alone, working to build a future for her. Everyone does what they have to do, Tasha said. No, Nicholas said firmly. Not everyone. Many people give up when things get difficult. You didn't. Their conversations became a regular part of the day. Nicholas would ask about Lily's school, her friends, her dreams. In return, he began sharing stories about his own childhood, about building his company from nothing, about the dreams he'd had before the accident changed everything. I wanted to travel, he told her one afternoon as they sat in the library. Not for business but for pleasure. I had this list of places I wanted to see. The northern lights in Iceland, the cherry blossoms in Japan, the pyramids in Egypt. I thought I had all the time in the world. You still do, Tasha said. There are ways to travel that don't require walking. Nicholas shook his head. It's not the same. I can't hike through the mountains or walk along the beach or climb the steps of ancient temples. But you can still see the northern lights. You can still smell the cherry blossoms. You can still touch the stones of the pyramids. Tasha set down her cleaning cloth and turned to face him fully. Maybe it's different than you planned, but different doesn't mean less. You make it sound simple. It is simple. It's just not easy. Nicholas studied her face. How did you get so wise? I'm not wise. I'm just stubborn. When life knocks you down, you can either stay down or figure out how to get back up. I chose to get back up. Even when it seemed impossible? Especially then. Something shifted in the air between them. The conversation had moved beyond employer and employee, beyond the formal boundaries they'd established. They were just two people who had faced impossible circumstances and found ways to survive. Tasha, Nicholas said, his voice softer than she'd ever heard it. I want you to know that having you here in this house has made a difference. You've made a difference. You've made a difference too, she replied and meant it. You've given me a chance when no one else would. You've given me hope. They looked at each other for a long moment, and Tasha felt something she hadn't experienced in years, attraction. Not just physical, though Nicholas was undeniably handsome, but something deeper. She was attracted to his intelligence, his determination, his hidden kindness. But she was also afraid. This job was too important to risk. Lily's future depended on her staying employed, and getting involved with her boss was a sure way to lose everything. I should get back to work, she said, standing quickly. Of course, Nicholas replied, but she could see disappointment in his eyes. That evening, as she tucked Lily into bed, her daughter asked, Mama, you seem different lately. Happier. Do I? Tasha smoothed Lily's hair. I guess I like my new job. Is your boss still mean? Tasha thought about Nicholas's smile, about the way he listened when she talked about her daughter, about the vulnerability she'd seen in his eyes. He's not mean, baby. He's just complicated. Do you like him? The question was innocent, but it hit too close to home. He's my boss, Lily. I have to work with him. That's not what I asked. Sometimes her daughter was too smart for her own good. It's complicated, Tasha said finally. The next morning, she arrived at work to find Nicholas waiting for her in the foyer. He was dressed more casually than usual, in slacks and a sweater instead of his typical suit. I want to show you something, he said without preamble. He led her to a part of the house she'd never seen before, an elevator that went down to what appeared to be a basement level. But when the doors opened, Tasha gasped. It was a workshop, but unlike any she'd ever seen. The space was filled with woodworking tools, half-finished furniture pieces, and detailed blueprints. Everything was at wheelchair height, clearly designed for Nicholas to work comfortably. You built all this? She asked, amazed. After the accident. I needed something to do with my hands, something that wasn't about the company or the lawyers or the medical appointments. So I learned carpentry. Tasha moved through the space, admiring the craftsmanship. A beautiful dining table stood in one corner, its surface smooth as glass. A rocking chair sat nearby, its curves perfectly balanced. These are incredible, she said. You're an artist. I'm a businessman who needed a hobby, Nicholas corrected, but she could see he was pleased by her reaction. Why are you showing me this? Nicholas was quiet for a moment. Because you're the first person who's been in this house in 3 years who's seen me as more than just a man in a wheelchair. You see possibilities where others see limitations. I wanted to share this with someone who would understand. Tasha felt her heart flutter. The trust he was showing her, the vulnerability, was overwhelming. Nicholas, I know, he said quickly. I know this is complicated. I know you work for me and I know that creates problems. But I can't pretend anymore that what I feel for you is just professional appreciation. What do you feel for me? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I feel alive again, he said simply. For the first time in 3 years, I wake up looking forward to something. I look forward to seeing you, to talking with you, to hearing about Lily and her dreams. You've given me back a part of myself I thought I'd lost forever. Tasha's breath caught. Nicholas. I'm not asking you to feel the same way, he said quickly. I know this is your job, your livelihood. I would never put you in a position where you felt pressured or uncomfortable. But I needed you to know. I needed to be honest about what you mean to me. She looked at him, really looked at him, and saw not the intimidating businessman or the angry, wounded man, but someone who had opened his heart despite all the reasons he had to keep it closed. I do feel the same way, she said softly. That's what scares me. What scares you about it? Everything. You're Nicholas Sterling. You're worth billions of dollars. You live in a mansion and run a company that employs thousands of people. I'm a single mother who cleans houses for a living. We're from completely different worlds. Money doesn't matter, Nicholas said firmly. Not in this. Money always matters, Tasha replied. It matters because it represents power, and power creates imbalances. What happens when you get tired of me? What happens when you want someone more sophisticated, more educated, more appropriate for your social circle? That won't happen. You don't know that. And even if it doesn't, what about Lily? What about the life I've built for her? What about the fact that I'm falling in love with you? Nicholas interrupted. The words hung in the air between them, powerful and terrifying. Tasha felt tears prick her eyes. Don't say that, she whispered. Why not? It's true. Because it makes everything harder. Or it makes everything simpler. Nicholas moved his wheelchair closer to her. Tasha, I'm not asking you to give up your independence or your life. I'm asking you to consider the possibility that we could build something together. Something real. And if it doesn't work? Then we'll deal with that when it happens. But what if it does work? What if we miss out on something beautiful because we're too afraid to try? Tasha closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the decision before her. Everything logical told her to walk away, to maintain professional boundaries, to protect herself and her daughter. But her heart was pulling her towards something she hadn't even dared to dream of. I need time to think, she said finally. Of course. Take all the time you need. As they rode the elevator back up to the main floor, Tasha felt as if her entire world had shifted. The man beside her was no longer just her employer. He was someone who had seen her, really seen her, and chosen to care about her anyway. But caring and love were dangerous things when you had everything to lose. The next few days passed in a strange dance of avoidance and attraction. Tasha threw herself into her work, trying to maintain the professional distance that had served her well. But Nicholas seemed determined to show her, through actions rather than words, what a relationship with him might look like. He began leaving small gifts for her. Not expensive jewelry or flashy displays of wealth, but thoughtful gestures that showed he'd been listening to their conversations. A book of poetry she'd mentioned wanting to read. A coffee blend from a shop she'd said she liked. A small potted plant for her apartment because she'd told him she wished she had a garden. You don't have to do this, she told him one morning, finding a beautifully wrapped package on her cleaning cart. I know I don't have to, Nicholas replied. I want to. Inside the package was a child's science kit, complete with a microscope and chemistry set. For Lily, he explained. You said she wants to be a doctor. I thought she might enjoy this. Tasha felt her resolve weakening. Nicholas, this is too much. It's a gift for a bright little girl who deserves to have her dreams encouraged. Nothing more, nothing less. But it was more, and they both knew it. It was Nicholas showing her that he cared about the most important thing in her life, her daughter. It was him proving that this wasn't just about attraction or loneliness, but about genuinely wanting to be part of her world. That evening when she gave Lily the science kit, her daughter's eyes lit up with joy. This is the best present ever. Lily exclaimed, already pulling out the microscope. Who gave it to me? My boss, Tasha said carefully. He heard you want to be a doctor. Can I meet him? I want to say thank you. He's very busy, baby. But I'll tell him you said thank you. What's his name? Nicholas. Lily considered this. That's a nice name. Is he nice? Tasha thought about Nicholas's gentle smile, his patient listening, his unexpected kindness. Yes, he's nice. Good. I like nice people. The next morning, Tasha found Nicholas in his study, staring at a stack of legal documents with a grim expression. Bad news? She asked, setting his coffee on the desk. The vote of no confidence has been scheduled for next month, he said without looking up. My business partners are confident they have the votes to remove me as CEO. Do they? Probably. Fear is a powerful motivator, and they've convinced the board that my disability makes me a liability. Tasha sat down in the chair across from his desk, abandoning her cleaning supplies. What will you do? Fight. I've been preparing for this for months. I have contingency plans, alternative strategies, ways to maintain control even if they remove me from the CEO position. But Nicholas looked up at her and she saw exhaustion in his eyes. But I'm tired, Tasha. I'm tired of fighting everyone all the time. I'm tired of proving that I'm still capable, still valuable, still worthy of respect. You are worthy of respect. Am I? Sometimes I wonder if they're right. If I'm holding on to something I should let go of. Tasha reached across the desk and took his hand. It was the first time she'd touched him deliberately, and she felt the warmth of his skin, the strength in his fingers. Listen to me, she said firmly. You built that company from nothing. You grew it into a global empire through your vision and your hard work. The accident didn't change your intelligence or your instincts or your ability to lead. Don't let them make you forget who you are. Nicholas stared at their joined hands. What if I lose everything? Then you'll build something new. That's who you are, a builder, a creator, a man who finds solutions where others see problems. And if I lose you too? The question was so quiet she almost missed it. What do you mean? If I'm not Nicholas Sterling, CEO of Sterling Industries, if I'm just a man in a wheelchair with no company and no fortune, would you still? He trailed off, unable to finish the question. Would I still what? Would you still care about me? Tasha felt her heart break a little at the vulnerability in his voice. Nicholas, I don't care about your money or your company. I care about you. The man who listens when I talk about my daughter. The man who creates beautiful furniture in his workshop. The man who restored his garden because he remembered what it felt like to feel peaceful. That's who I care about. Even if I lose everything? Especially then. Nicholas brought her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. I don't deserve you. You don't get to decide what you deserve, Tasha said. That's not how love works. The word slipped out before she could stop it and they both froze. She'd said it, the word that changed everything. Love? Nicholas asked softly. Tasha could have taken it back, could have claimed she misspoke. Instead she chose honesty. Yes, love. I've been fighting it for weeks but I can't anymore. I love you, Nicholas. Not your money, not your company, not your house or your status. I love you. Nicholas closed his eyes and when he opened them, they were bright with unshed tears. I love you too, he said. I've been trying to find the courage to tell you for days. And now I'm terrified and exhilarated and more hopeful than I've been in years. Tasha laughed, surprising herself. That's exactly how I feel. What do we do now? I don't know, she admitted. I've never been in love with my boss before. I've never been in love with anyone before, Nicholas said quietly. What? I've had relationships but they were always about convenience or business advantages. I've never felt for anyone what I feel for you. The admission made Tasha's chest tight with emotion. Nicholas. I know it's complicated. I know there are obstacles we'll have to figure out. But I want to try. I want to see where this goes. What about my job? What about it? I can't work for you if we're together. It's not right. Nicholas considered this. Then we'll figure out alternatives. I could hire someone else to handle the housekeeping or you could work for one of my other companies, or we could find you a position somewhere else entirely. There are solutions, Tasha. There are always solutions. And Lily? What about her? If we do this, if we try to be together, she'll be part of it. She's part of me. I can't separate my role as her mother from my role as whatever this is. I wouldn't want you to, Nicholas said firmly. I already care about Lily. I want to meet her, to get to know her, to be part of her life if she'll let me. She wants to meet you too. She wants to thank you for the science kit. Really? Really? She said you must be nice because you gave her such a wonderful present. Nicholas smiled. Smart girl. The smartest. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, hands still joined across the desk. Then Nicholas spoke again. I want to take you on a proper date. Dinner somewhere nice, maybe a movie or a show. I want to court you the way you deserve to be courted. I'd like that, Tasha said. But slowly. I need time to adjust to this, to figure out how to balance everything. We'll go as slowly as you need. And Nicholas? Yes. Whatever happens with your company, whatever your business partners decide, it doesn't change how I feel about you. You're going to be fine. We're going to be fine. Promise? I promise. As she left work that day, Tasha felt like she was walking on air. She'd done the one thing she'd sworn she wouldn't do. She'd fallen in love with Nicholas Sterling. But instead of feeling foolish or reckless, she felt hopeful. For the first time in years, she was allowing herself to dream of a future that included more than just survival. She was dreaming of partnership, of love, of building something beautiful with someone who saw her as more than just a means to an end. It was terrifying and wonderful and completely unexpected. It was perfect. The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning, mixed in with Tasha's usual stack of bills and junk mail. She almost threw it away, thinking it was another credit card offer, until she noticed the return address, Sterling Industries, Legal Department. Her heart pounded as she tore open the envelope. Inside was a formal letter informing her that a trust fund had been established in her daughter's name. The amount listed made her sink into her kitchen chair in shock. $250,000. For Lily's education. Tasha's hands shook as she read the letter again, searching for some explanation, some mistake. But there it was, in black and white, signed by Nicholas Sterling himself. She called in sick to work and spent the day pacing her apartment, the letter clutched in her hand. By evening she couldn't take it anymore. She drove to Sterling Manor, using her key to let herself in. Nicholas was in his study as she'd known he would be. He looked up when she entered, and his expression immediately grew concerned. Tasha? What's wrong? You look... How could you? She interrupted, throwing the letter on his desk. How could you do this without telling me? Nicholas glanced at the letter and his face went pale. You weren't supposed to get that for another few days. I wanted to explain it in person. Explain what? That you've been lying to me? That you've been treating me like some kind of charity case? That's not. $250,000, Nicholas. Do you have any idea what that means to me? What it looks like? It means Lily can go to any college she wants. It means she can become the doctor she dreams of being without worrying about student loans or... It means you think I can't provide for my own daughter. Tasha's voice cracked with emotion. It means you see me as some poor woman who needs rescuing by a rich man. Nicholas maneuvered his wheelchair around the desk, moving closer to her. That's not true. That's not what this is about. Then what is it about? It's about love, Nicholas said quietly. It's about wanting to give the people I care about every opportunity to succeed. Without asking me first? Without discussing it with me? I knew you'd say no. You're damn right I would have said no. Tasha was crying now, angry tears streaming down her face. Because it's not your place to make decisions about my daughter's future. It's not your place to swoop in and solve all my problems with your money. I wanted to help. I don't need your help. I don't need you to fix my life or rescue me from poverty or make everything better with your checkbook. Nicholas flinched as if she'd slapped him. I never said you needed rescuing. But that's what this is, isn't it? Poor little Tasha and her daughter, struggling to make ends meet. Better set up a trust fund to ease my conscience about falling in love with the help. Stop it, Nicholas said firmly. Stop putting words in my mouth. You know that's not how I see you. Do I? Because right now I feel like I don't know you at all. How long have you been planning this? How long have you been making decisions about my life behind my back? I set up the trust fund 3 weeks ago, Nicholas admitted. After you told me about Lily's dreams, about how bright she is, about how much you worry about being able to afford her education. 3 weeks ago. Right around the time you told me you were falling in love with me. The timing isn't a coincidence, but it's not what you think. Then tell me what it is. Nicholas ran his hands through his hair, looking more vulnerable than she'd ever seen him. I love you, Tasha. I love you more than I've ever loved anyone. And when you love someone, you want to take care of them. You want to make their dreams possible. By throwing money at them? By using the resources I have to make a difference. This is what I can do. This is how I can show you that I'm serious about us, about our future. Our future? Tasha laughed bitterly. What future? The one where you make all the decisions and I'm grateful for whatever scraps you throw my way. That's not fair. Isn't it? You decided to set up this trust fund without consulting me. You decided what was best for my daughter without asking for my opinion. What other decisions have you made about our lives? Nicholas was quiet for a long moment. There's something else. Tasha's heart sank. What? I've been paying your rent for the past 2 months. And I paid off your credit card debt. The words hit her like a physical blow. She staggered backward, gripping the edge of a chair for support. You what? Your landlord called to say you were behind on rent. I couldn't stand the thought of you and Lily being evicted, so you decided to play God with my life. I decided to help the woman I love. Without telling me. Without asking permission. You just took over. I wanted to take the pressure off you. I wanted you to be able to focus on us, on our relationship without worrying about money. And you thought the best way to do that was to lie to me? I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you everything. That's the same thing. Tasha was sobbing now, her whole body shaking with rage and hurt. Do you have any idea how humiliating this is? How it makes me feel? I never meant to humiliate you. But you did. You made me feel small and helpless and dependent. You made me feel like I'm not capable of taking care of myself and my daughter. You are capable. You're the strongest person I know. Then why didn't you trust me to handle my own problems? Nicholas was quiet for a long moment. Because I wanted to be your solution. I wanted to be the one who made everything better for you. That's not love, Nicholas. That's control. I never wanted to control you. But that's what you did. You took control of my financial situation without my knowledge or consent. You made decisions about my life as if I were a child who couldn't be trusted to make her own choices. I was trying to help. You were trying to fix me. Like one of your business problems or your broken garden. But I'm not broken, Nicholas. I'm not a problem that needs solving. I know you're not. Do you? Because everything you've done suggests otherwise. Nicholas reached out to her, but she stepped back. Don't, she said. Don't touch me right now. Tasha, please. Let me explain. There's nothing to explain. You've said everything I need to hear. You love me, so you decided to take over my life. You care about me, so you turned me into your pet project. That's not what happened. That's exactly what happened. And the worst part is I fell for it. I actually believed that you saw me as an equal, as a partner. But you don't. You see me as someone who needs taking care of. I see you as someone I want to take care of, Nicholas said desperately. There's a difference. Not to me. Tasha moved toward the door, but Nicholas called after her. Where are you going? Home. To my apartment. The one you've been paying for without telling me. Tasha, don't leave. Not like this. We can work this out. No, we can't. Because this isn't about the money, Nicholas. It's about trust. It's about respect. It's about seeing me as capable of making my own decisions about my own life. I do see you that way. No, you don't. If you did, you would have talked to me before making any of these decisions. You would have asked what I wanted, what I needed, what would actually help me. I was afraid you'd say no. So you decided to take away my choice entirely. Nicholas looked stricken. I never thought of it that way. Of course you didn't. Because you're used to being in control. You're used to having your way. But I'm not one of your employees or your business deals. I'm a person with my own agency and my own pride. I know that. If you knew that, you wouldn't have done this. Tasha reached the door and paused, turning back to look at him one last time. I love you, Nicholas. I really do. But I can't be with someone who thinks love means making decisions for me. I can't be with someone who sees my independence as a problem to be solved. Please don't do this, Nicholas said, his voice breaking. Please don't leave. I have to. Because staying would mean accepting that this is how it would always be between us. You making decisions, me being grateful for whatever you decide to give me. That's not how it would be. Yes, it is. Because that's who you are. You're a man who's used to being in control, and you can't turn that off just because you're in love. I can learn. I can change. Maybe you can. But I can't take that risk. Not with my daughter's future at stake. As she walked out of Sterling Manor for what she knew would be the last time, Tasha felt her heart breaking. She'd found love, real love, and now she was walking away from it. But she was also walking away with her dignity intact. And sometimes that was more important than love. 3 weeks passed in a blur of misery. Tasha had found another job quickly. Word traveled fast in the service industry about good workers, and her impeccable references from Sterling Manor opened doors. She was now cleaning offices in a downtown building, work that paid less but came with no emotional complications. The trust fund documents sat untouched on her kitchen table. She'd called the legal department at Sterling Industries twice to arrange returning the money, But both times she'd been told that Mr. Sterling would need to approve the dissolution of the trust personally, and he wasn't taking calls. Lily noticed her mother's sadness, though Tasha tried to hide it. "Is it because of Nicholas?" her daughter asked one evening as they sat doing homework together. "What do you mean?" Tasha asked, though she knew exactly what Lily meant. "You were happy for a while and then you got sad again. It was right after you talked about him. Did you have a fight?" Tasha sighed. Sometimes she forgot how perceptive her daughter was. "Something like that." "Was it because he gave me the science kit? Are you mad that he spent money on me?" "No, baby. I'm not mad about that. The science kit was a lovely gift." Then what happened? How could she explain it in terms an 8-year-old would understand? "Nicholas and we wanted different things. Sometimes people can love each other but still not be able to be together." "That's stupid," Lily said with the blunt honesty of childhood. "Sometimes love is stupid," Tasha agreed. "Do you miss him?" "Every day. Every hour. Every minute. A little. Maybe you should call him." "It's not that simple, sweetheart." "Why not?" "Because pride and principle and self-respect were complicated things that didn't bend easily to a child's logic. Because sometimes sorry isn't enough to fix things." But even as she said it, Tasha wondered if she was being stubborn. Nicholas had made a mistake, a big one, but his intentions hadn't been malicious. He genuinely believed he was helping her, even if his method had been all wrong. The problem was trust. How could she trust him not to make similar decisions in the future? How could she be sure he wouldn't always see her as someone who needed rescuing? Her phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. The caller ID showed Sterling Manor and her heart jumped. "Hello? Miss Johnson? This is Mrs. Patterson." Tasha's heart sank. She'd hoped it was Nicholas. "Hello, Mrs. Patterson. How are you?" "I'm concerned about Mr. Sterling. I was hoping you might be able to help." "I don't work there anymore." "I know, dear. But he's not well. He's barely eating, barely sleeping. He's shut himself in his study and won't come out. He's missed important business meetings. The vote of no confidence is tomorrow, and he's not even preparing for it." Tasha felt a stab of worry. "What do you want me to do?" "Talk to him. He won't listen to any of us. But maybe he'll listen to you." "Mrs. Patterson, I can't. What happened between us? It's complicated. I don't know what happened, and it's not my place to ask. But I do know that man is destroying himself, and I think you might be the only one who can stop him." "He made his choice." "Did he? Or did he make a mistake? There's a difference, you know." After Mrs. Patterson hung up, Tasha sat staring at her phone. She thought about Nicholas alone in his study, refusing to fight for the company he'd built. She thought about the vulnerability she'd seen in his eyes when he told her he loved her. She thought about the trust fund documents on her table, and suddenly she had an idea. The next morning she called in sick to work and drove to Sterling Manor. She used her key one last time, knowing she'd have to return it after this. The house felt different, darker, sadder. Mrs. Patterson met her in the foyer, her relief evident. "Thank goodness you're here. He's been in there for 2 days straight. I don't think he's slept at all." Tasha walked to the study and knocked on the door. "Go away," came Nicholas's voice from inside. "It's me," she said simply. There was a long pause, then the sound of his wheelchair approaching. The door opened and Tasha's heart clenched at the sight of him. He looked terrible, unshaven, his hair disheveled, his eyes red with exhaustion. "Tasha?" He said her name like he wasn't sure she was real. "We need to talk. I thought you never wanted to see me again." "I changed my mind. Can I come in?" Nicholas nodded, stepping aside to let her enter. His study was a disaster. Papers scattered everywhere, empty coffee cups on every surface, the smell of a man who'd been working without pause for days. "The vote is today," she said. "I know. Are you going to fight it?" "What's the point? They're right. I'm not the same man I was before the accident. Maybe it's time to accept that. That's not the Nicholas Sterling I know. Maybe you never really knew me at all." Tasha pulled the trust fund documents from her purse and placed them on his desk. "I'm returning these." Nicholas glanced at the papers, then looked away. "I can't take them back. The trust is irrevocable." "Then I'll donate the money to charity." "You do that? Even though it could secure Lily's future?" "I do it because it's not mine to keep. And because I need you to understand something." "What?" "I don't need your money, Nicholas. I never did. What I needed was your respect. Your trust. Your partnership. I do respect you." "No, you don't. If you respected me, you would have talked to me before making those decisions." You would have asked what I wanted instead of deciding what you thought I needed. Nicholas was quiet for a long moment. You're right. I handled it all wrong. What? Help me understand why you thought it was okay to do what you did. Because I was afraid, he said quietly. I was afraid that if I asked you'd say no. I was afraid that you'd think I was trying to buy your affection. I was afraid that you'd leave before I could show you how much you mean to me. So instead, you decided to control the situation. I decided to solve the problem. That's what I do. I see problems and I solve them. Your financial stress was a problem, so I solved it. But I'm not a problem, Nicholas. I'm a person. A person who's been taking care of herself and her daughter for years without anyone's help. I know that. I've always known that. Your strength is one of the things I love most about you. Then why did you try to take it away from me? Nicholas looked at her with such pain in his eyes that she almost reached out to comfort him. Almost. Because I wanted to be needed, he said. Because I wanted to be more than just a man in a wheelchair who fell in love with someone out of his league. Out of your league? Look at me, Tasha. Really look at me. I'm damaged goods. I can't walk, I can't dance, I can't do half the things a normal man can do. What do I have to offer you except money? Everything, she said without hesitation. You have everything to offer me. Your intelligence, your humor, your kindness, your passion for creating beautiful things. Your ability to see solutions where others see problems. Your strength in the face of adversity. But, no buts. The wheelchair doesn't define you, Nicholas. It's just a tool you use to get around. What defines you is how you treat people, how you handle challenges, how you love. Then why did you leave? Because you made me feel small. Because you made decisions about my life without including me. Because you treated me like someone who couldn't be trusted to make her own choices. I never meant to make you feel small. But you did. And that's something we have to work through if we're going to have any chance of making this work. You mean, you're willing to try again? I'm willing to try. But things have to change. Really change. We have to be partners, Nicholas. Equal partners. That means you talk to me before making big decisions that affect me or Lily. It means you trust me to handle my own problems unless I ask for help. I can do that. Can you? Because changing fundamental patterns isn't easy. You're used to being in control, used to having your way. Can you really share control with someone else? Nicholas was quiet for a long moment. I want to try. I want to learn. Because losing you was worse than any business failure, any medical diagnosis, any setback I've ever faced. And I want to try too. Because I love you, Nicholas. I love you enough to fight for us, to work through the hard parts, to figure out how to make this work. What about the trust fund? We'll figure it out. Together. Maybe we can restructure it so that Lily has access to educational funds but I maintain control over when and how they're used. Maybe we can set up a college scholarship program that helps other kids like her. I don't know yet. But we'll decide together. Together, Nicholas repeated as if testing the word. Together. Partners. Equals. I love you, Tasha. I love you so much it scares me. I love you too. Now, about that vote of no confidence. Nicholas looked at his watch. It's in 3 hours. Then we'd better get you cleaned up and ready to fight. Because you're not giving up your company without a battle. I'm going with you. You don't have to. Partners, remember? Your fights are my fights now. For the first time in weeks, Nicholas smiled. I like the sound of that. The Sterling Industries boardroom was a monument to corporate power, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, a massive mahogany table that could seat 30 people, and walls lined with portraits of the company's previous leaders. Nicholas had been in this room countless times over the years, but today it felt different. Today it felt like a battlefield. Tasha sat in the gallery area reserved for observers, her presence both a comfort and a reminder of what he had to lose. She'd helped him prepare for this moment, going through his presentation slides, practicing his arguments, reminding him of his strengths when doubt crept in. You built this company from nothing, she told him that morning as he'd straightened his tie. You turned a small construction firm into a global empire. They can't take that away from you. They can take the company away from me, he'd replied. No, they can't. Because the company isn't just a business. It's an extension of you. Your vision, your values, your innovations. Even if they remove you as CEO, they can't remove what you've built. Now, as he looked around the table at the faces of his board members, Nicholas drew strength from her words. These people had made fortunes because of his leadership, his vision, his willingness to take risks when others played it safe. Richard Blackwood, his former business partner and the man leading the charge against him, called the meeting to order. We're here today to address concerns about Nicholas Sterling's continued fitness to serve as CEO of Sterling Industries, Blackwood began, his voice carrying the weight of false regret. While we all respect Nicholas's contributions to this company, recent events have raised questions about his ability to lead effectively. What recent events? Nicholas asked, his voice steady despite the anger building inside him. Your failure to attend the Tokyo conference last month. Your absence from the Johnson merger negotiations. Your general withdrawal from day-to-day operations. I was present for the Johnson merger negotiations via video conference. I contributed to every major decision. The Tokyo conference was handled perfectly by my team as I had planned. But you weren't there physically, board member Patricia Holmes interjected. Your disability prevents you from traveling, from meeting with clients face-to-face, from representing the company in the way our stakeholders expect. Nicholas felt the familiar surge of anger, but this time it was controlled, focused. My disability doesn't prevent me from doing anything. It requires me to do some things differently. There's a significant distinction. Come now, Nicholas, Blackwood said with false sympathy. We're not attacking you personally. We're simply acknowledging reality. The business world has changed. It requires mobility, flexibility, presence. Things that are challenging for you now. Challenging? Nicholas leaned forward in his wheelchair. Let me tell you what's challenging, Richard. Challenging is building a company from a single office to a global operation worth $12 billion. Challenging is maintaining profitability during 3 economic downturns. Challenging is innovating in an industry that resists change. He gestured to the financial reports spread across the table. These numbers don't lie. Under my leadership, even post-accident, this company has grown by 40%. Our client satisfaction rates are at an all-time high. Our employee retention is the best in the industry. Our stock price has doubled in 3 years. Numbers on paper, Blackwood dismissed. But what about leadership? What about inspiration? How can you inspire a workforce when you can't even? When I can't even what? Nicholas's voice was dangerously quiet. When I can't even walk. Is that what you were going to say? The room fell silent. Several board members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Let me ask you something, Nicholas continued. How exactly does the ability to walk correlate with business acumen? How does standing up enhance strategic thinking? Does mobility somehow improve financial analysis? It's about perception, Holmes began. Whose perception? Our clients? Because I've spoken with them. The Morrison Group specifically requested that I continue to handle their account personally. The Rodriguez Corporation increased their contract by 60% last quarter specifically because of my involvement. The Zhang Industries deal, our biggest acquisition ever, happened because they trusted my vision. Nicholas looked around the table, meeting each board member's eyes. Or are you talking about your perception? Your discomfort with having a CEO who doesn't fit your traditional image of corporate leadership? That's not fair, Blackwood protested. What's not fair is this meeting, Nicholas replied. What's not fair is calling my competence into question based on my physical limitations rather than my performance. What's not fair is trying to force me out of the company I built because you're uncomfortable with change. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. But since we're here, let's discuss the real issue. This isn't about my disability, is it, Richard? This is about the Henderson deal. Blackwood's face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. The Henderson deal that you tried to negotiate behind my back. The one where you promised them a 30% discount without board approval. The one where you told them I was stepping down and you'd be taking over negotiations. Murmurs rippled around the table as board members exchanged glances. You want to talk about fitness for leadership? Nicholas continued. Let's talk about unauthorized negotiations, about undermining company policy, about making promises you have no authority to make. That was a misunderstanding. It was insubordination. And it's not the first time. Nicholas opened the folder, revealing documents that made several board members lean forward in surprise. Patricia, were you aware that Richard has been shopping around for investors willing to buy out my shares? Were you aware that he's been promising them control of the company's direction? Holmes looked at Blackwood with shock. Richard, is this true? I was exploring options. Without board approval. Without transparency. Without regard for your fiduciary duty to this company and its shareholders. Nicholas could see the tide turning. The board members who had walked in prepared to support Blackwood were now looking at him with suspicion and concern. The question isn't whether I'm fit to lead this company, Nicholas said, his voice gaining strength. The question is whether we can trust Richard Blackwood to act in the company's best interests rather than his own. This is ridiculous, Blackwood sputtered. You're deflecting from the real issue. The real issue, interrupted board member James Morrison, is that our company has never been more successful than it is right now, under Nicholas's leadership. The real issue is that you've been conducting business behind our backs. I agree, said another board member. I came here prepared to discuss Nicholas's future, but now I'm more concerned about Richard's past actions. Nicholas felt a surge of hope, but he wasn't finished yet. I want to address something else. The assumption that physical disability equals professional inability. That's not just wrong, it's dangerous. He looked directly at Tasha in the gallery, drawing strength from her encouraging smile. 3 years ago I thought my life was over. I thought that losing the use of my legs meant losing everything that defined me. I was wrong. What defines me isn't my ability to walk, it's my ability to think, to innovate, to lead, to inspire. The accident taught me things I never would have learned otherwise. It taught me resilience. It taught me to find solutions when the obvious path isn't available. It taught me to rely on my mind instead of my physical presence. These aren't weaknesses, they're strengths. Nicholas turned to address the board directly. I'm not asking you to vote for me out of sympathy or political correctness. I'm asking you to vote based on results. Based on performance. Based on the fact that this company has never been stronger than it is today. And I'm asking you to vote against the kind of behind-the-scenes manipulation that Richard represents. The kind of leadership that promises one thing to the board and another to outside investors. The kind of management that puts personal ambition ahead of company welfare. The room was quiet for a long moment. Then James Morrison spoke up. I'd like to call for a vote. But not the vote we originally planned. I move to remove Richard Blackwood from the board of directors for breach of fiduciary duty. Seconded, Patricia Holmes said immediately. What? Blackwood stood up, his face red with anger. You can't do this. We can and we are, Morrison replied. All in favor of removing Richard Blackwood from the board? Hands went up around the table. When the count was finished, it was unanimous except for Blackwood himself. Now, Morrison continued, I'd like to call for a vote of confidence in Nicholas Sterling's continued leadership as CEO. All in favor? Again, hands went up around the table. This time the count was even more decisive. Nicholas felt relief wash over him, followed immediately by gratitude. He looked up at Tasha, who was wiping tears from her eyes and smiling broadly. Thank you, he said to the board. Thank you for your confidence. I promise you won't regret it. As the meeting adjourned and board members began filing out, several stopped to shake Nicholas's hand and express their support. Patricia Holmes lingered. Nicholas, I owe you an apology. I let Richard's concerns cloud my judgment. Your performance speaks for itself. Thank you, Patricia. I appreciate that. And I have to say, seeing you fight for this company today reminded me why we made you CEO in the first place. You don't just run this business, you embody it. After the last board member left, Tasha came down from the gallery. Nicholas wheeled over to her and she bent down to hug him. I'm so proud of you, she whispered in his ear. I couldn't have done it without you, he replied. Knowing you were here, knowing you believed in me, it made all the difference. You did this yourself. You fought for what was yours. We fought for it. Together. As they left the boardroom, Nicholas felt something he hadn't experienced in 3 years. Complete confidence in his future. Not just his professional future but his personal one as well. He'd won more than a vote today. He'd won back his sense of self, his belief in his own worth, his faith in the possibility of love and partnership. And he'd done it with Tasha by his side, just as he planned to do everything else for the rest of his life. The weeks following the board meeting brought a new energy to both Nicholas's professional and personal life. Sterling Industries stock reached an all-time high after news of the board's unanimous confidence vote spread through the business community. Nicholas found himself busier than ever, but it was a good kind of busy, the kind that came from building rather than defending. More importantly, his relationship with Tasha was blossoming into something neither of them had expected. They'd spent hours talking through their issues, establishing new boundaries and communication patterns. The trust fund had been restructured exactly as Tasha suggested. She maintained full control over its use, and they'd also created a scholarship program for underprivileged children pursuing medical careers. I want to meet her, Nicholas said one evening as he and Tasha sat in his newly restored garden. They'd started having dinner outside when the weather was nice, enjoying the peace and beauty of the space they'd helped bring back to life. Lily? Tasha asked, though she knew that's who he meant. If you're comfortable with it. I know it's a big step, introducing me to your daughter officially. Tasha had been thinking about this moment for weeks. She and Nicholas had been together for 2 months now, and their relationship felt solid, real, permanent. But bringing Lily into it would change everything. She's been asking about you, she admitted. She wants to thank you personally for the science kit, and she's curious about the man who's been making her mother so happy. And what have you told her about me? That you're someone very special to me. Someone who makes me laugh and challenges me to be better and treats me like I matter. Nicholas reached over and took her hand. You do matter. You matter more than anything. I know that now. It took me a while to believe it, but I know it. So when can I meet her? Tasha smiled. How about this weekend? We could have lunch here, let her see the garden and maybe your workshop if you're comfortable with that. I'd love that. I want to show her everything. Saturday arrived with perfect weather. Sunny but not too warm, with a gentle breeze that made the garden feel like something from a fairy tale. Tasha had prepared Lily for the visit, explaining that Nicholas used a wheelchair but was otherwise just a regular person who happened to care about them both very much. When they arrived at Sterling Manor, Lily's eyes went wide at the sight of the mansion. Mama, this is where you work? She asked in amazement. This is where I used to work, Tasha corrected. Now I work somewhere else, but Nicholas and I are friends. Special friends, Lily said with the knowing look of a child who understood more than adults gave her credit for. Nicholas was waiting for them in the garden, and Tasha felt her heart flutter at the sight of him. He was dressed casually in jeans and a button-down shirt, looking relaxed and handsome and slightly nervous. Lily, Tasha said, this is Nicholas. Nicholas, this is my daughter Lily. Hello Lily, Nicholas said, extending his hand. It's very nice to finally meet you. Lily shook his hand solemnly, studying his face with the intensity only children possessed. Thank you for the science kit. It's the best present anyone's ever given me. You're very welcome. Your mother tells me you want to be a doctor. I do. I want to help people feel better. Mama says you help people too with your business. I try to. We build things, houses and offices and schools. Places where people can live and work and learn. That's important too, Lily said seriously. Everyone needs a safe place to be. Nicholas glanced at Tasha, touched by her daughter's wisdom. They do indeed. Would you like to see the garden? Your mother helped me plan how to restore it. As they walked through the garden paths, Lily peppered Nicholas with questions. She wanted to know about every flower, every tree, every design choice. She was particularly fascinated by the fountain in the center of the space. Did you build this yourself? She asked. I helped design it, but other people built it. It was here when I was a little boy, but it wasn't working anymore. We had to fix all the pipes and replace some of the stones. It's beautiful. I wish we had a fountain at our apartment. Maybe someday you will, Nicholas said, glancing at Tasha with a look that made her heart skip. After lunch on the terrace, Nicholas asked if Lily would like to see his workshop. Her eyes lit up with excitement. You have a workshop? What do you make? Furniture mostly. Tables and chairs and cabinets. Things that are useful but also beautiful. The workshop visit was a huge success. Lily was fascinated by all the tools and the half-finished projects. Nicholas let her help sand a small wooden box he was making, and she took the task very seriously. This is hard work, she observed as she focused on getting the surface perfectly smooth. The best things usually are, Nicholas replied. But see how beautiful the wood becomes when you put in the effort? It's like magic, Lily said in wonder. Hard work often looks like magic to people who don't see all the steps, Nicholas agreed. As the afternoon wore on, Tasha watched her daughter and the man she loved getting to know each other. Nicholas was patient with Lily's endless questions, treating her with the same respect he'd show an adult. Lily, in turn, seemed completely comfortable with him, chattering away as if they'd known each other for years. Nicholas, Lily said as they sat by the fountain eating ice cream, are you going to marry my mama? Both adults nearly choked on their dessert. Tasha felt her face burning with embarrassment. Lily, she scolded. That's not an appropriate question. Why not? Lily asked with perfect innocence. You love him and he loves you. When people love each other, they get married. That's what happens in all the movies. Nicholas recovered first, smiling at Lily's directness. Your mother and I care about each other very much. As for the future, well, we'll have to see what happens. I hope you do get married, Lily said matter-of-factly. Mama's been happier since she met you. And you're nice. You listen when I talk and you don't treat me like I'm stupid. You're definitely not stupid, Nicholas assured her. You're one of the smartest people I've ever met. I know, Lily said with confidence that made both adults laugh. Mama says I get it from her. I think she's right, Nicholas said, winking at Tasha. As evening approached and it was time to leave, Lily hugged Nicholas goodbye. Can we come back soon? She asked. Anytime you want, Nicholas replied. This is your home too now? The words were casual, but they carried weight that all three of them understood. This wasn't just about visits. This was about family. On the drive home, Lily was unusually quiet until she suddenly announced, I like him, Mama. Do you? Yes. He's not scary like I thought rich people would be. He's just normal. But nice normal. He is nice. And he makes you smile the way Daddy never did. Tasha was surprised by the comparison. Lily rarely mentioned her father anymore. What do you mean? When Daddy was around, you smiled with just your mouth. When you're with Nicholas, you smile with your whole face. It's different. Out of the mouths of babes, Tasha thought. Her 8-year-old daughter had just articulated something she'd never been able to put into words herself. That night, after Lily was in bed, Nicholas called. How do you think it went? He asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. I think you've got a new admirer, Tasha said. She talked about you for an hour before she finally fell asleep. She's an amazing kid, Tasha. You should be incredibly proud. I am. And Nicholas? Thank you for being so wonderful with her. I know it couldn't have been easy, being interrogated by an 8-year-old. Are you kidding? She's delightful. Smart, funny, honest, she's exactly like her mother. She asked me something tonight that I didn't know how to answer. What? She asked if we were going to be a family. All three of us. There was a pause on the other end of the line. What did you tell her? I told her that families come in all different shapes and sizes, and that the most important thing is that people love and take care of each other. That's a good answer. But it's not really an answer, is it? No, Nicholas agreed quietly. It's not. Nicholas? Yes. I think I'm ready to find out what our answer is. Are you sure? I'm sure. I love you. Lily loves you. You love us. That sounds like the beginning of a family to me. It sounds perfect to me. As they said goodnight, Tasha felt a sense of completion she'd never experienced before. For the first time in her life, she was part of something bigger than just her and Lily. She was part of a real family built on love and respect and partnership. It was everything she'd never dared to dream of, and it was finally within reach. 6 months later, Tasha stood in front of the full-length mirror in what was now their bedroom at Sterling Manor, adjusting the simple but elegant white dress she'd chosen for their wedding. It wasn't a traditional wedding gown. She'd wanted something that reflected who she really was rather than what people expected a bride to wear. You look beautiful, Mama, Lily said from her perch on the bed. She was wearing a pale blue dress and had agreed to be the flower girl, though she'd negotiated for the right to also give a speech at the reception. Thank you, sweetheart. Are you ready for this? Are you? It was a fair question. The past 6 months had been a whirlwind of changes. Tasha had officially moved into Sterling Manor with Lily, though they'd kept their apartment as well. Nicholas had insisted she maintain her independence and have a space that was entirely hers if she ever needed it. The transition hadn't been entirely smooth. There had been adjustments on all sides as they learned to live together as a family. Lily had needed time to get used to the grandeur of the mansion and the presence of household staff. Nicholas had needed to learn how to share his space and his routine with a child who had very definite opinions about everything. But they'd worked through each challenge together with patience and humor and lots of communication. They'd established family traditions: Sunday morning pancakes that Nicholas made himself, Friday movie nights where Lily got to choose the film, Saturday afternoons working in the garden together. Nicholas had also undergone an experimental treatment that had restored partial feeling and mobility to his legs. He still used his wheelchair most of the time, but he could walk short distances with the help of braces and canes. The progress was slow but steady, and his doctors were optimistic about continued improvement. I'm ready, Tasha said, answering both her daughter's question and her own doubts. I'm more than ready. The wedding was small, just family and close friends in the garden they'd all helped restore. Mrs. Patterson had insisted on handling all the arrangements, claiming it was the least she could do for the man who'd brought happiness back to Sterling Manor. As Tasha walked down the aisle with Lily by her side, she saw Nicholas waiting for her at the altar they'd set up near the fountain. He was standing, leaning on elegant wooden canes he'd crafted himself in his workshop. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone present. This was a man who'd found his way back to his feet through love and determination. The ceremony was conducted by a minister who'd known Nicholas since childhood. As they exchanged vows they'd written themselves, there wasn't a dry eye in the small gathering. "Tasha," Nicholas said, his voice strong and clear, 3 years ago I thought my life was over. I thought I'd lost everything that mattered. But I was wrong. I hadn't lost anything, I just hadn't found you yet. You taught me that love isn't about finding someone perfect, it's about finding someone who makes you want to be better. You taught me that strength isn't about never falling down, it's about how you get back up. You taught me that home isn't a place, it's a person. I promise to love you with everything I have. I promise to respect your independence while cherishing our partnership. I promise to be the best father I can be to Lily, and to support your dreams as fiercely as I pursue my own. I promise to walk beside you through whatever challenges come our way, literally and figuratively. Tasha wiped away tears as she began her own vows. Nicholas, when I first met you, I thought you were the coldest, most intimidating man I'd ever encountered. I had no idea that underneath all that ice was the warmest heart I'd ever known. You saved me from a life of just surviving and showed me what it means to truly live. You gave me partnership when I'd only known struggle. You gave Lily a father when she'd never had one. You gave us both a home when we'd only known uncertainty. I promise to love you not despite your challenges, but because of how you've met them. I promise to be your partner in all things, your successes and your setbacks, your dreams and your fears. I promise to trust you with my heart and to earn your trust every day. I promise to build a future with you that's better than anything either of us could have imagined alone. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Nicholas took the few steps necessary to reach Tasha without his canes. It was a gesture that spoke volumes about how far he'd come, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Their kiss was gentle, tender, full of promise for the future they were creating together. The reception was held on the terrace, with dancing under the stars and toasts that ranged from heartfelt to hilarious. Lily's speech, as promised, was a highlight. "I'm really happy that Nicholas married my mama," she announced to the gathering, speaking into a microphone that was almost as tall as she was. "Not just because he's nice and he makes good pancakes, but because he makes mama happy in a way I've never seen before. Before we met Nicholas, it was just me and mama against the world. We were a good team, but we were small. Now we're bigger and stronger, and we have someone who loves us both just because we're us. That's pretty special. Also, now I have a really cool house with a fountain and a workshop where I can build things. So that's awesome too." The laughter and applause that followed were warm and genuine. As the evening wound down and guests began to leave, Tasha found herself standing by the fountain with Nicholas and Lily, all three of them still in their wedding attire but barefoot now, having kicked off their shoes to dance. "So what happens now?" Lily asked, echoing the question they were all thinking. "Now we live happily ever after," Nicholas said, lifting her up to sit on the fountain's edge. "Do you really think it will be that simple?" Tasha asked. "No," Nicholas said honestly. "I think it will be challenging and complicated and sometimes difficult. But I also think it will be worth it. Because we'll face whatever comes together." "Together," Tasha agreed, feeling the truth of that word settle into her bones. 6 months ago, she'd been a single mother working multiple jobs just to make ends meet. Today, she was married to a man who loved her completely, living in a beautiful home, with her daughter thriving in ways she'd never imagined possible. But more than the material changes, it was the emotional transformation that mattered most. She'd found love, real, deep, lasting love that was built on respect and partnership and genuine caring. She'd found a family that was bigger and stronger than the sum of its parts. She'd found her happily ever after, and it was better than any fairy tale because it was real. As they walked back toward the house, Lily between them holding both their hands, Tasha thought about the woman she'd been when she first walked through the gates of Sterling Manor. That woman had been brave and determined, but she'd also been scared and alone. This woman, wife, partner, beloved, was still brave and determined. But she was no longer alone. She was part of something beautiful and permanent and true. She was home. "Thank you so much for reading." She took the job nobody wanted at the cruel Millionaire's house and lived the best days of her life. Your support and engagement mean everything to writers like me who pour their hearts into creating stories that touch yours. I'd love to hear from you. Please take a moment to share your thoughts in the comments below. Two Hearts, what was your favorite moment between Tasha and Nicholas? Glowing Star, how did you feel about Nicholas's character transformation throughout the story? Family Man Woman Girl, what did you think about how they handled blending their family with Lily? Flexed Biceps, which character's journey of growth resonated most with you? House with Garden, did the ending feel satisfying and realistic to you? Your comments, likes, and shares help stories like this reach other readers who might need a dose of hope and romance in their lives. Don't forget to subscribe for more heartwarming stories that celebrate love, resilience, and second chances.